Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Today, I have Rachel Pierre with us today. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Alice. Hello, audience. Excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you here. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and let us know the kind of work that you do and who you like to work with.
Yeah, so I'm Rachel Pierre, as Alice announced. I am a Haitian native who speaks French. I grew up in a French-speaking world. I did not speak a word of English until I turned 18. So I know what it feels like when you're in a room, with a lot to say, but not having the words to say it. And so now I coach executives on maintaining, their authority when the language in the room switches to French, so that they don't lose their leverage at the table, they don't lose the leverage or the respect, when they're in the room.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So I'd love for you to, for my listeners who maybe aren't negotiating in in bilingual situations, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about like the situation, right? What's going on in those situations when you do have two languages or two cultures and they're sort of colliding, and maybe you feel like you're stronger in English or whatever your native tongue is, and you're having to try to navigate that. So can you talk a little bit about the actual situations that pop up for your clients?
Yeah, so one situation is I want to take an example of a high profile case, right? Because this is fresh, this just happened. And so it's the Air Canada CEO who wanted to make a speech and honor this pilot, Montreal native who passed away in an accident in LaGuardia Airport in New York. And so knowing the history of Quebec means knowing, how important they fought to maintain French because North America is primarily English speakers. And so they fought a lot to maintain French as their language. And when you go to Quebec, when you go to Montreal, you'll see most people will honor that and will make an effort to speak French. And so for them to hear, this leader, the Air Canada CEO, make an entire speech in English and only 2 words in French, it felt devastating for them. They felt unseen. They felt disrespected. They felt like their identity was not honored. So it wasn't truly about language, but it's the reality that language creates, right? It's what it represents, right? And so, but in listening, so at first, I made some assumptions, but I decided to go listen to the speech myself. And I heard the CEO say, bonjour, but it sounded so bad that I realized why he did not make the speech in French. And probably his publicist probably told him, don't make the speech in French because your French is really bad. And but then what happens, right? So they made the decision, he and his team made the decision to make the speech in English, but you have to know how to connect to your audience, okay? And you have to use the language that allows you to do that. And so, yes, your French was bad, but I also know that he spent 300 hours, learning French. So it's like, what happened there? And that's the type of situation I coach my executives for. Like, one thing that freezes them a lot is when they're in a room and they're asked, okay, what do you think in French? What do you think? And they don't know. They freeze up. And so I equip them with certain sentences. I drill those sentences into them to know, okay, first of all, knowing that in French speaking rooms, a 2-second pause is okay. It doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. Pausing to keep your composure, to remember, okay, what did Rachel coach me? She said, okay, start the sentence with, I think that, or what strikes me is, and then you go on from there. So it's truly, I teach them the importance of knowing the room you're in, understanding what respect means in those rooms, so that you equip yourself with the tools, the language. So yeah, so prime example, Errada CEO. I wish he'd known me before making that mistake, because I would have coached him on what to say, how to say it, in order to maintain the respect of a nation, in order to connect with your nation, and show them that you are their leader, that you see them for who they are, you see their identity. And so yeah.
Yeah, so I love this. This is a new topic, so I'm always excited when we have new questions. And I think one of the important, there's a couple of different things that you mentioned, so I'm going to address both of them sort of separately. So the
Okay.
one thing is about preparation, and in the event
Mhm.
that you have negotiations or some kind, like you said, this was not necessarily negotiation, but he's losing the respect of
Yes,
the people that he's supposed to lead, right? So
exactly.
yeah, so that's still some kind of a negotiation. He might not be
Yes,
negotiating for something, but he is negotiating for respect,
that's
right?
right.
He's trying to get
Absolutely.
or gain or keep the respect of the
That's
people
right.
that he's leading, right?
Yeah.
And so in these instances, unfortunately, the reality is they will have to spend more time in the preparation phase,
Yes.
right? And you
Hmm.
mentioned like, okay, he spent 300 hours learning French. What happened? Now, I think that's great that he spent the 300 hours, and I think that that is definitely commendable. And if his accent is really not good or he is still not fluent enough, I don't think there's anything wrong to show that you're trying. And because
Yes.
that also gets a lot, if you just give up and you're like, you know what, I'm not even going to try because I'm that insecure, that's when you
Why?
lose the respect, right?
Yes.
I would rather hear someone speaking English with a terrible accent, but they're trying, rather
Yes.
than they just go, you know what, I can speak English, but it's too bad. I'm going to just revert to my native tongue, right? So,
Yes.
in the same way, he could have written everything out
Yeah.
in French,
Absolutely.
right? Made someone check
Absolutely.
it to make sure that it's all correct grammatically, whatnot. And then also letting people know as a joke in the very beginning, because when you have something like this and you're feeling insecure, it always helps if you can joke about it. You can say, look,
Yes.
my French accent's really terrible, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yes.
So bear with me, right? To just
Yeah.
state it, put it out there. Don't pretend like you're fluent. Don't pretend that you sound good when you don't sound good. Just own it and say, I've got this speech written. It's in French. I'm going to read it. My accent sucks. So hopefully you can understand what I'm saying, but here we go. And just put it out there
Yeah.
because people love authenticity.
Yes.
They will resonate with the fact that he is struggling, but he is, guess what? He's trying,
He's trying. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And people
Yeah.
will appreciate that far more than him just saying, I can't speak, I have a terrible accent, let me just revert to English.
That's such an important point, because that's what George Clooney did at the Golden Globe Awards, because he's learning French, but his French is terrible. So he made a joke about it.
Yes,
Yeah, and the room laughed. The room cracked up. So yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
it's a powerful tool. Humor is a powerful tool. It
Yeah.
brings people together
Yeah.
in a lighthearted way. And you can
Yeah.
say embarrassing things like, I'm not really good in this language, right? You can say it, but if you make a joke about it,
Yeah.
everyone can, it's like humanity shows up, right? Because it
Yes.
speaks to everyone understanding,
Yeah.
yeah, if I were in your position, I would also feel nervous. And so all of
Yeah.
a sudden, the entire audience will be empathetic because you've made a joke and you've shown your vulnerability,
Yeah. I
which
love
is,
that.
I'm doing something very difficult. I'm speaking
Hmm.
in a language that I'm not comfortable with. I have
Hmm.
written it out because I'm that uncomfortable. And I'm going to look silly saying it in a very bad accent, but I'm
Yeah.
willing to show up for you,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that gains a lot of points if
It
you
does.
can be vulnerable,
Yeah, it
right?
does. And to your point, I remember saying that at the beginning. Why couldn't they write him two sentences and have him practice over and over and over before the speech? Like, it's not that hard, especially for somebody who's already taken some classes. But also, what I did learn is that those 300 hours were spread out across 4 years. And so when I calculated it, it's like an hour a week. And so, yes, you're not going to get to the level of fluency you need if you're
Right.
only practicing an hour a week, which is why I created my 90-day program where it's super intensive. It's an immersion program. We start with, for example, changing your settings in from English to French, like your laptop settings, devices that you use on a regular basis. And then we leverage your own routine. What do you do in the morning? Do you go for coffee? Okay, put a sticky on your coffee maker and write it in French. How do you say that in French? Okay, you take a shower. How do you say that in French? You brush your like put stickies, or like I create this French immersion for them, because you don't need to go to Paris or to a French speaking country to be immersed. Because that's what happened to me. My dad immersed me in English while I was still back home in Haiti, and I learned the language the year prior coming to the States for my studies. And so I know it works. And so it truly, and French isn't easy to learn. So you really have to start with immersion, which I think, was a little mistake that they made with his learning experience. But I absolutely agree. Yes, people resonate with authenticity, and it would have been better if he fumbled through it, had a paper, and said, "I'm going to make a fool of myself, but I want to try."
Yes.
Absolutely.
There's that piece of it, right? To just show up authentically, to show your vulnerability.
Yeah.
People, you don't always have to be like perfect and strong and right? You
Hmm.
can say, I'm fallible. I'm a
Yeah.
human. I have
Yeah.
insecurities. I'm not feeling very comfortable, but I'm going to go ahead and try because I feel like this is really important to you, right? So that's number one. The other thing is to really understand deeply the culture that you're negotiating with, because American culture negotiates very differently from, say, Asian cultures, and I'm sure from European culture. And so if
Yeah.
you're not aware of those differences, you actually run the risk of losing a negotiation,
Yes.
right? Like in
Absolutely.
Japan, you should never call things out directly. Everything
Hmm.
is like, first there's like hours and hours of just getting to know you. So like there's not even let's sit down and negotiate. There's like a whole thing before that, right? And so if you as an American go in and start negotiating too soon, you can lose the deal because you have not respected their culture of negotiation.
Yes. Yes, I did have a client who almost lost a $45 million deal like that, because, same with French culture, it's all about relationships. You build relationships, and then they have to trust you and they have to get to know you before they actually do business with you. Like,
Yep.
who is this person that I'm going to be, committing to? It's kind of like a marriage, right? A business is like kind of like a marriage. Okay, we're going to do this business. We're going to be partners for however many years. Okay, so who am I doing business with? And so he mentioned that at their last dinner, his French counterpart said, "Okay, we agree in principle." And he took that to mean that they agree. And so he came back to the States, starting drafting paperwork, and I said, "But isn't there? I thought it was similar in English when you say we agree in theory. That's why he said we agree in theory. That doesn't mean it's final." And so he went back with his team, presented the paperwork, ready to collect signatures, and they felt so disrespected
Oh
and
my God.
yeah, and unheard, because I mean the French counterparts, because and they said there must have been confusion. We said we agree in principle. So what happened? You just decided to run with it? So yes, knowing, the culture, like knowing it's I talk about it in my, how to break social polarization. It helps when, you break monolingualism, right? Like learning another language, because your reality is not everyone's reality. Okay, so how does that nation do business? What's important to them? What does respect mean to them? Right? Yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah,
completely agree.
because I'm sure when he came back with a proposal that looked like it, or an agreement that they had to
Yeah.
sign, it probably feels very disrespectful if
Yes.
you were the party where you just said, okay, in principle I agree, but like we need to still like flesh out details, and all of a sudden they show up and they say, here's a contract. It
Yeah.
feels very shady, right? You suddenly feel
Yes.
like, oh, is this person trying to pull something over here because like we never
Yes.
had a deal and now there's a deal, so then you suddenly break the trust, and then
Yes.
the trust with a complete stranger that you're just
Hmm.
getting to know. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to make that trust back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah. yes, I feel like you definitely have to tread carefully, make sure you understand what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, because there's a language barrier, so even if both parties speak both languages,
Mm-hmm.
they articulate and communicate in slightly different, where there's nuances,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so what they may say in English might not be the exact way that you
Mm-hmm.
would be saying something in English, and the way you say something in French, if that's
Yeah.
not your native tongue, might be very different than the way they express themselves. So you have to be very careful, because just in a monolinguistic culture such as America, where it's all English, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many misunderstandings, right?
Very true. Very
Even
true.
in English, everyone is
Yeah.
speaking English. It's
Yeah.
their native tongue, and
Yeah.
there's still misunderstanding. So you can imagine, you add another layer,
Yeah.
different cultures and different languages,
Yeah.
and you have to be really, really careful as to like what's really being said, because sometimes in
Yes.
cultures, they don't say things directly.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
There's
So
a
always
lot.
get clarity. Get clarity. Do you mean this? Do you mean that? So, or, oh, are you saying you agree? Because when his counterpart said, okay, we agree in principle. Okay, so are you saying you agree? We're good to like get clarity. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do not assume. Yeah.
exactly. Because yeah,
Mhm.
it should be like, this is this an agreement, and do you want me
Mhm.
to draft an agreement for you to sign?
Exactly. Exactly. Are you ready to move forward? Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to draft documents? Yes, yes. That was such, I've learned a lot through this process myself, because even as you told me the story, I said, but isn't this the same thing in America where you say agree in theory? And the way you explained it to me, to your point, yeah, but it's completely different. And so it helped me realize that, even to myself, that okay, that's good to know, because I too would have been offended had you, come back with all the paperwork. Yes, it did feel shady. So I completely understand.
The other
Yes.
thing I wanted to touch on was what you said earlier, which is pausing. That is a
Yes.
very powerful negotiation tactic.
Hmm.
You can pause. You can even say, we need to pause the entire negotiation, right? So you just
Yeah.
say, like, if you and I are negotiating a really big deal, it's totally okay
Hmm.
for me to say, Rachel, let me get back to you like at the end of the week, and pause it completely. Now, I know what you were talking about is more in a conversation where maybe someone's asking you, maybe in not your non-native tongue, a question,
Yeah.
and between trying to figure out the words that you're going to use as well as your actual thoughts,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
need that pause. And I think it's really important to not only take the pause, but to acknowledge that you feel comfortable taking the pause.
Yes.
So, like you said, there are ways that you can say, like, well, my thought is, or what I heard was, that's another good one. This is what
Yes.
I understand. What I understand
Yes.
you say is, and repeat it
Hmm.
back. So what that does is, while you are still talking, you're buying your brain some extra time to think,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you can sort of like figure out, like, what is it that I want to say, while you're repeating back what you're understanding. So especially when it's like two different languages, I think it's extra important to be able
Yes.
to say, okay, Rachel, let me make sure that I understand your question. You're asking me, is it okay if we do X, Y, and Z? Is that correct? So double check, and you will say,
Yes.
yeah, that's correct. Or you can say, actually, no, you misunderstood me. That's not what I meant. And now
Yes.
I'm clarifying, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good way to like slow the conversation down.
Down. Hmm.
And if I still need additional time to think about it, it's okay to say, you know what, give me a minute. Let me think about this.
Yeah.
You don't have to show up with an answer like
Right
immediately,
away. Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
okay to not have an answer, and it's okay to acknowledge, give me a minute to think about it.
Yeah. And you know where else I think it works also is when we tend to jump quickly to assumptions. I think pausing and perhaps considering a different perspective is so useful. I'll take an example of the elevator, right? I remember when my mom came to see me back when I lived in New York City. We stepped into the elevator, and I didn't say anything. And when we stepped out, she goes, I didn't raise you that way. You step into the elevator, you didn't say good morning, you didn't say hello, and I said, okay, mom, I want you to experience this. Next time, I want you to say something. And sure enough, the next time she says something, she says good morning, and no response. right? And but in the building where I lived, it was multicultural. There were a lot of Asians, there were a lot of Caribbean people, and I tell her, from what I know, okay, in certain countries, when you step into the elevator, you don't talk. You have to stay silent because, especially it's a closed room, silence means respect, mom, in those environments. Because she was so offended that they didn't respond to her. And she quickly said, "Oh my God, that's so disrespectful." I'm like, "Mom, they're not trying to be rude. I think it's probably their culture." So pausing to ask, okay, am I jumping to conclusions, or are they being rude, or perhaps it's their culture, or perhaps it's something I don't understand? That's always good. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that particular instance, it probably would have been wiser for your mom to just ask you afterwards, is there a reason why you didn't say hello to anyone?
Exactly.
Like, well, in our neighborhood or in our city or in our state or in our region of the
Yes.
country, like
Yeah.
it's, considered rude to actually say something because you're trying to respect everyone's privacy.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely. And even with the different language, we're talking about different languages, because if you think about the United States, region by region, we have all of our own subcultures, right?
Very true. Hmm. Very
Like
true.
people on the East Coast, West Coast, and the
Yeah.
South don't necessarily conduct business in the
No.
same way.
Very true.
And I would imagine that people in the South conduct business very similarly to other countries where they say, hey, what's the relationship
Yes.
first?
Yeah.
Relationship first, business second,
Yes. I agree.
right?
I agree.
Whereas in other parts of the country, maybe New York, I'm going to guess that,
Mhm.
it's okay to just start off, let's negotiate. Let's do
Yes.
business.
Yeah, because in New York, time is money. And so they prefer not to waste time. Let's get down to business. Yes. Hmm.
So it's important to know, like, what is the culture where I'm
Yeah.
negotiating? Is it a different culture? Is it a different subculture? Is there a language barrier? If so, let's make sure that we are actually understanding what we each think the other
Yeah.
person is saying, right?
Yes.
And then just take that pause.
Yeah.
Take the pause and acknowledge. And if you want to try to respond in your non-native tongue and you feel uncomfortable, just let them know, hey, I'm going to try to respond in French or
Yeah.
Spanish or Japanese. It's not that great. Make a joke of it, right? Make a
Yes.
joke of it.
Yes.
People will understand, hey, we get that you're not that secure in it, but we
Yeah.
appreciate your effort.
Very true. Very true. People will always appreciate the effort. Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes a long way when you negotiate, because if people feel like, wow, you're really making an effort for this negotiation, it's more likely to go the way you want it to go than if
Yes.
they feel like you don't care enough to even try,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I so agree. Because even if that's not how you think or how you feel, or that wasn't your intention, but that is exactly how it's gonna come across. It's gonna come across as, I don't care enough to try.
Right.
And yes, the deal won't go your way. You will lose leverage. Yes. Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a really wonderful conversation, Rachel. Thank you for
It
joining.
was so fun. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and if someone wanted to work with you, how can they reach you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Pierre. They can also find me on Instagram. Rachel's French Method is my handle. And they can go to my website, parlezmethod.com, and they can contact me from there. It's parlez, Parlez method.com.
Oh, wonderful. Awesome. And do you work with people all over the country?
I do our people all over with people all over the country and globally. Anyone who is doing business in a French speaking country, doesn't have to be France. It could be Switzerland, or Cote d'Ivoire, because there are African countries where French is the main language. It could be Montreal. And so I work with people all over the world who are doing business with francophones, or relocating to a French speaking country, and yeah, are used to commanding the room, but become insecure when the language switches to French. I'm here for you to help you maintain that authority, to help you understand their culture, and help you connect with them. Yeah.
Oh, so wonderful. I'm so happy that you came and guested on my podcast. And anyone who is interested in working with Rachel, please reach out to her, and her information will also be in the show notes. So
Thank
thank
you.
you, Rachel, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, listeners.
Thank you, listeners, for joining another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Until next time.